Our first speaker, our first poet sharing her work is Tipparti, and her poem is called Writer's Block.
Hello, everybody. As Dr. Reeve said, I'm Rishi. The title of my piece is Writer's Block. I find myself yet again staring at a blank screen, my heart racing and dancing in my fingertips as they cry, "Create!" at my stony face, carved in desperate despair as nothing flows out onto the page. "I can't!" I scream. So many memories, all for what? What is the advantage of all the language I know when I can't weave words like tapestries? What is it all for when the meticulous muses mull over my lack of meaning? My fidgeting fingers freeze, as like a breath of air knocking my breath away, I see myself standing in front of a crowd, a blemished bust in front of a booing body of people, as they scream at me to say it all, watching me with inexplicable intent, as like foam frothing in the corners of my mouth, words, those sharp words that cut and drag and shank the ears they fall upon, make me burst open and scream. Enticing me to open my mouth, they tell me to scream loud. They tell me to screech, to spew and spill and spit my struggles and spectacular stories until they're scrawled in a page in ink squiggles. They tell me to shriek until my body runs no longer on adrenaline and arduously screaming and daring to draw attention. To roar and bellow and shout until my voice grows hoarse and I find my vocal cords waltzing of my own accord, because they told me if you holler loud enough, you won't be ignored. You'll make waves, kid. You'll be adored. So I scream until they hear and listen and understand. Scream until my voice matters so much. My whispers are worth the screams I meted out painstakingly in the boldest of bold beginnings, because in the end I screamed so much, my voice became so raw that the echoes were loud enough to amplify what I had to say. Words and lines and stories and novels built on top of one another and lined with more words scream for the version of me that was bullied into silence and turned to the stars in the sky for comfort. They watch as I shout for the version of me that spiraled but stopped because she realized she didn't want a little brother growing up with an empty sister or parents mourning a daughter that withered before she could blossom. Scream, because if you don't have a voice, you don't have a life. They tell me, Rishi, scream loud, because one day, when voices cross lives and step on one another to breathe, you'll need to holler as loud as you can to stay alive. They tell me to scream so I can unhear all the words that were shouted at me and to walk backwards into my middle school building so I can face it at the very least in my memories. Because in the end, it's about getting over unpleasantries and finding symphonies in your epiphanies, because I could run out of breath and die behind this mic with spirit travels beyond me and out of sight into the skies where bloodlines shine bright. And even if they were my last words, I won't feel contrite, because what's more to life than pride and spite and embracing all our hellos and goodbyes, because everything's gonna turn out all right. They tell me to thunder so loud the silence is deafening as I brought upon the world the final reckoning, as I confront the blunt affront of every mark of lifeless aliveness as if it were my last day living, because everything is gonna be all right. They tell me to scream louder than the frantic clicks of fingers flying across my keyboard, desperate to paint in lexicon the murals of moments, as my voice morphs from waves to oceans and crashes onto the beach that is my computer screen. They tell me to caterwaul for all the times I didn't wail and spit and yell out everything that twists and turns in my mind, because in the end, the struggle is tremendous, but our voices are relentless and the fire that burns in us is endless. So when they tell you and me to scream with everything our hearts and souls and existences got, because we were born of the same stardust, remember that we were made to echo eternally and to tell each and every one of us all of our stories. And deep down, we all know we exist to think and bawl and beam and persist, to make our people stand tall and proud, and everything else you could think of, but most of all, to breathe, to dream, and to scream loud. Because in the end, we breathe the same blood and breathe the same air. And I'm running out of time, so I'll ask us all why. When the answer is so obvious, do we wail in despair and ask ourselves more than we should probably care? Will I ever overcome the ever so dreaded writer's block? Thank you.
Thank you, Rishi. That was awesome. right, Rishi's coming back for an encore.
Yeah. Hi, everyone. It's me again. Now I'll actually be reciting a poem on behalf of my friend Minal Kawaja. She wishes she was here, but she's currently having the time of her life in Turkey, so I'll be saying it for her. Minal says that this poem, titled Breathe, is inspired by her own mental health struggles since she was fairly young, and she wants to emphasize how important it is to use your voice and that it's all going to be better in the end. So yeah, here's presenting Breathe by Minal Kawaja. Silence keeps the mind at peace, but at what cost? Silence can feel nice, but silence can also kill. Silence can be a lovely sound, but it grows and overflows. It becomes so loud you just can't take it anymore because silence can kill, and silence can bruise the minds of once joyful souls. In silence was always a habit for me. Silence brought me down on my knees. Silence makes it hard for me to breathe. It makes me unable to speak. And God, please make it easy for me to speak and breathe, because right now, I can't even feel my feet. My hands once working, now numb. My brain once functioning, now fogged. My arms loosely attached to my body, so frail. And my voice unable to say what I desperately need. Every day, it gets louder and louder. Silence becomes an overwhelming matter. I can't think, because if I do, the silence will break. But I promise myself to never become this way. I can't feel because it hurts so much. I can't see because I know if I just look another person in the eyes, I'll break. And I know if I try to breathe, I'll break too. Break again and again. The cycle gets old, so stop now. Proceed to breathe. Proceed to breathe till you break and bleed. Proceed to scream, shout. Scream till you can't scream anymore. Scream till you can breathe again. Scream till you can see again. Silence is a virtue. Your voice is a virtue. Take advantage of it, because you won't be able to use it again. And when you sleep, you'll be trapped and freeze again. And when you cry, you'll lose air and stop again. You'll be grounded from the forever lies that bury you dying. I'm fine, cut the BS. People say that pain in the body quiets the pain in the mind. If that's the truth, then why am I still not fine? Why am I going mad daily from voices that shame me and break me and hate me, destroy what I built up, my mentality for show? Let life flow, let life heal. Healing takes time, I know. Healing can take years, days and days you wait. Wait for life to finally pause, not eternally, but just for a bit. Not physically, but from within. It might take some time, but take it slow. Count down from 10 and restart the flow. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4. Breathe, breathe, breathe. Thank you.
All right, our next student poet is Ava Vestal.
Hi, I'm Ava, and this poem's actually titleless. As the midnight wind dwindles and the sun begins to rise, the lovely colors of nature are abundant. As the world wakes up and Mother Nature rubs her bleary eyes, the beauty of our world comes into focus. Enormous trees of green and spanning fields of flowers, clear blue water as bright as liquid starlight, skies full of fluffy clouds without a drop of rain in sight, and snow-capped mountains that reflect the morning light. Throughout the day, our world becomes more and more beautiful. As the day goes on, it becomes more ethereal, but eventually, the sunlight fades and the wind begins to whisper. As the world begins to grow silent and Mother Nature shuts her tired eyes, the world settles into a peaceful sleep, waiting for another day to arise. Thank you.
All right, thanks for sharing your poetry, guys. Today's main presenter burst onto the poetry scene with the publication of her first book entitled Poetry is More Than Just a Poem in 2002. Since then, she has written 2 more books, Journey of Discovery in 2004 and A Writer and a Fighter in 2012. She's currently working on another book of poetry, along with a memoir self-help book. In terms of honors, she has received an International Poet of Merit Award from the International Society of Poets, And when Karen Yarbo was one of our state representatives, she received 2 special recognition awards from Yarbo. She was also nominated to replace Gwendolyn Brooks as Illinois Poet Laureate in 2003. Please welcome Paula Denise Johnson.
Where's her picture?
Where's my picture? I'd like to see myself. Here it is. Isn't she beautiful? Isn't she? I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. Hi, everyone. I'm happy to be here. I'm going to read some of my poetry, and I'm also going to share some things about myself with you guys, but I'll try to incorporate the poetry with that. So I started writing at a very young age. I started at the age of 11, writing my very first poem dedicated to the memory of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. at 11 years old, where I received an International Poets Award, International Poets of Society Award for that poem. It was a short poem, but it built my confidence and helped me continue writing poetry today. I am going to share with you that poem. I'm going to try to read a poem from each book so you guys know. So this is my first book. Poetry is more than just a poem. And if you can imagine an 11-year-old militant girl who thought that Dr. King was the world and could solve the world's problems, just picture me reading this poem. Keep his dream alive. Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. had a dream. Throughout all America, he wanted freedom to reign. In his dream, he saw love between blacks and whites. He saw everyone with equal rights. He saw people loving each other for who they were and not their color. In the year of 1968, Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. died, but we must all strive to keep his dream alive. I was so proud of that poem. It was like the shortest thing, but I was so proud of it. So that was my beginning stages of writing. And that was, like I said, a poem from my first book. So as I grew older, I realized that the world had greater problems like violence, racism, postpartum deaths, mothers were killing their children, things like that. So I started writing about the things that I was seeing. And I'll read one of those poems as example, mainly the violence. I was really big on reading the newspaper and the news. I had an older sibling that encouraged me to read newspapers, but not realizing that some of the dark information in there was going to play a role in my writing. So this poem is an example of the dark writing. It's about gun violence and children. This is also from my first book. It's entitled, 2 Lives Lost at Once, dedicated to the memory of Siobhan Dean and Robert Sandifer. I did a lot of dedication and memory poems. Okay, so. Children are dying every day. Oh Lord, we must not continue this way. Siobhan Dean was a beautiful 14-year-old whose life was cut short in a drive-by shooting. She dreamed of becoming a cosmetologist. Her life was taken and she lost her wish. Police searched for her killer, only to find that the alleged killer himself had been killed. It brings tears to my eyes when a young one dies. My heart is saddened on that day in September. The news reporter announced both the deaths of Siobhan Dean and Robert Sandifer. I can vividly remember. An 11-year-old and 14-year-old gone to the grave. 2 lives I did not help save. While they should have been living their lives and having fun, one question lingers in the back of my mind. Was there anything that I could have done? So that was like some of my dark poems. In the beginning, in my first book, you'll see it starts off with all these very, very dark things. And I didn't realize that I was writing all this stuff. It was just how I was feeling. I would read something and I wrote how I was feeling to get over it. So people that bought the book and came to my book signing and said, oh my God, this book is so dark. You must have like a dark soul or something. Why are you writing about all this dark stuff? And I'm like, no, it's just what I see, what I'm reading. I've been reading the newspaper. So I decided to stop reading the newspaper and start writing more positive things. So my second book is a reflection of that. So Journey of Discovery is my second book. You guys can't see it up there. It's probably got cut off. So this is when I started finding myself and knowing my writing style, or learning my writing style. So I'll read this poem, and then I'll tell you guys a little bit more about myself. So it's called Journey of Discovery. Journey of Discovery. Join me on this journey of discovery. I have discovered me, and I am completely free. I know what I want, I know who I am, and I am not afraid to show it. This is my moment in time. I am emerging. I have risen above my circumstances, and this is my time. I am delighted to have finally discovered Paula and introduced you to her. For years, I didn't know who she really was. No more compromising. Today, I am free, and no one can take that from me. No more hoping and wishing, only accomplishing. I'm very proud of my discovery. I am a lovely flower that continues to bloom and bloom. So that is more positive stuff that I started writing, but like I said, I went from the dark to positive and then back to dark because things that happen in your life. So I went to high school and I came in contact with an English teacher who changed my world and changed my writing, my interest in writing poetry. So I was introduced to the poem Invictus by William E. Henley. I was used to reading Langston Hughes, Gwendolyn Brooks, Maya Angelou, poems like that. So he opened up my world. When I read this poem, I was inspired. So that kind of helped me not wanting to write dark things. Invictus was, if you understand the history of the poem and the poet, understanding that he had lost one of his legs at 16 and was in the hospital about to lose his other leg. But he was motivating himself. Thankfully, he did not lose his other leg. Well, he had to inspire himself. I am the master of my fate. I am the captain of my soul. Those are the most famous words you hear quoted regularly. And I like to quote that. So those are my favorite poems. So I did an analysis. And mind you, this is my first poem analysis on a Victorian era poet or poem that I never would have read if I hadn't come in contact with this teacher. I did the analysis, handed it in, and got an A+. An A+, that was so big for me. Because the plus, I have to say plus, because that means I exceeded expectations. I love to exceed expectations. So I got the A+. The teacher wrote great reviews about the poem, and it just boosted my self-esteem. I was so excited. I'm like, oh my God, I did this. This is wonderful. I can go on and do this and do that. But I was not doing so well in some of my other classes. So this inspired me to look at myself. Because, when you're a teen, you're in high school, you might have low self-esteem. There's things, you look at yourself, you have a pimple, oh, I look ugly. It dims your self-esteem. So that boosted my self-esteem and my confidence. So I realized, oh, I may be failing math, but I got an A+. I got an A+ on this one paper, and I'm getting an A+ in the class. So maybe I can do more. So it motivated me to begin to try to like the classes that I did not like, because I hate math. I cannot stand math. But getting that A in the other class let me understand, hey, I'm not dumb, I'm not stupid, I can do something right. So I can do this math if I put my mind to it. So I did. I ended up passing the math class as well. But it was very important. It's very important for me to say that teacher made a difference in my life. I had no idea. Because you always think, oh, your parents are going to make a difference. They do, but that teacher who I didn't know from Adam just changed my world. And I began to build confidence in myself. I got so bold that I sat down and wrote Gwendolyn Brooks, who was the Illinois Poet Laureate of Chicago and professor at Chicago State University. I got so bold, thought I could write her and send her a copy of my poem to critique it and tell me what did she think, should I'm ready to publish. So I thought because I got an A+, she was gonna be like, oh yeah, you're great, girl, you got this, ooh, go publish, you're gonna be wonderful. She did not say that. Oh my God. She ran out of paper. She actually corrected the letter that I sent. My grammar was so poor in the letter. She wrote all over the paper because she ran out of room because she had so many corrections. And on my poem, my heart was hurt a little bit, but I was so excited. My excitement that she sat down and took the time to write me back outweighed my offensiveness. So I took her advice and began to go over all the poems that I had written and see if I was ready to publish. It kind of put a damper on my feelings, but at the same time I was excited because I got her attention. She actually wrote me back, and I've talked to people that had written her, she didn't respond. So that made me very proud and boosted, again, my self-esteem. But I didn't realize that I too was boosting my own self-esteem because I started writing positive and encouraging poetry. So I did what she said, and as you can see, that's a result of her positive feedback, my teacher, and me also believing in myself. I have 3 books that are published, and I am currently working on my 3rd and 4th books. So teachers matter, constructive criticism matters, and believing in yourself matters. So I am going to read you a poem from my 3rd book. I was writing because once I got the confidence that I needed, I couldn't stop writing. I was like, this is crazy, this is insane. I was writing in my sleep. I would wake up out of my sleep and get up and write something. I would even dream about poems and dream about writing. I was like, this must be my gift. This is something that I must do. Because at first it was just a hobby. And then I started publishing books. I'm like, this is it. And then people would come to me and say, hey, I can relate to that poem. Oh, that touched me. Oh, this, oh my goodness, I love your writing style. I love this. So I said, this is meant for me to write and to publish it. So you have to perfect your gift. Even though it's a talent, you have to perfect it. Take the advice of professionals, listen. I know there's some people you might not want to hear their comments about it. I'm not talking about people that are negative or things like that, but I mean like someone that has constructive criticism that is looking out for you and making sure that you do the right thing. So here's a poem. It's called Can't Stop. Poetry chose me, nominating me the poetic diva of my time. Thank you for choosing me to come through. This is a strange thing, yet powerful, because the pen I write with refuses to run out of ink. Poetry is the song I sing, every lyric I write. I love songs that tell a story. Poetry tells my story. I can't stop. The pen won't let me. I can't stop fighting, and I can't stop writing. Poetry won't let me. When I try to get a few minutes of sleep, I sometimes write in my sleep, writing some of the best poetry in my dreams. I awake to words written on my face, hand, and body. This thing has completely taken over my life. If one day this pen decides to run out of ink, even then I won't stop. I write to keep my sanity, fighting every single day just to stay above ground. I just love when my writing flow begins, because once it starts, it doesn't stop. It doesn't end. I can't sleep at all. I can't even be a sabbatical taker because the flow consumes me. I can't control it because it has taken control of me. Poetry is my reality, my life. I breathe it. It's my baby. Poetry is my thing. The hand I write with is mightier than a sword, cutting through even the thickest steel. My words are more powerful than any army. You can't stop the flow once it has started. This thing forces me to be everything I desire to be. I can't stop, no matter how hard I try. Even when my heart stops, it won't. These words will live forever, and that's why I write. I simply can't stop writing, can't stop living, can't stop giving you all of me. I can't stop loving myself. If I stop, I'll die. Let me help you understand one thing. Writing saved my life. I can't stop striving. Dreaming is what I do to make this thing a reality. I can't stop until my dreams are fulfilled. Every last one of them, but even then, I can't stop. Because I'm a dreamer, and as the words don't stop flowing, the dreams don't stop coming. I have a gift to share and lives to touch. If I'm not allowed to express myself through this gift of poetry, I might as well lay down and die. is exactly what I would do. If my words cease to exist, this is where my passion lies. I just can't stop giving it my all, giving life to this gift that has taken over mine. My thoughts tell me what I can't stop. My thoughts tell me that I can't stop. And so does the pen, paper, and my left hand. That's a piece. So that's one of my more positive poems. And like I said, when I started writing, I couldn't stop. So this book, A Writer and a Fighter, this one is more of my positive work and perfected work, where I saw a few errors and where I lived and I learned. So I hope to have an even more fascinating book of poetry with my my fourth book of poetry. So like I said, writing has, when I say writing, I was reading, when I read that, I said, writing literally saved my life. And it did. Writing literally saved my life. As a child, there's traumas and things that you go through in life or that you may have suffered. And you have to find an outlet or you will lose your mind. You will go insane. And writing was my outlet. Writing was my outlet for everything. I'm not going to say I was bullied, but I witnessed bullying and may have participated in some bullying. I hate to say that, but people made fun of my braids that my mother put in my hair. People made fun of our dress. We were religious. I had to wear skirts every day in the wintertime, legs freezing. So people made fun of us, but I took that and I made fun of other people too. But I also motivated myself and built up my self-esteem, not to, not to lose my mind. So writing was my escape. So whenever I went through something traumatic or experienced something, I would write. So I wrote about it. So I wrote this poem called Who's Laughing Now? It's based on bullying when you were a child, discrimination. I told the earlier class, back in the day, people talked about big lips, big nose, big eyes, big butts, big boobs. Now everybody's literally dying to have big boobs, big butts, and lips. So I wrote this poem called Who's Laughing Now? And it kind of touches on that, but you could take it and spin it and use it any way you want. But it's basically saying, I get the last laugh because now everything I got, you are trying to get. So look who looks ridiculous. Okay, and here it is, I'll read it to you. This is a poem that I performed lots of times, but I'll read it to you so I won't miss anything. Who's laughing now? When I was a child, you laughed at me. I would hide my face, but my tears you could surely see. You claimed that I was abnormal because I didn't look like you. You believed I had no feelings, but deep down inside, only I knew. You laughed at my clothes and the braids my mother put in my coarse hair. You spit on me and called me derogatory names as if I didn't care. You talked about my enormous eyes, my broad nose, and the fullness of my lips. You even commented about the way I swayed my hips. You assumed that if you laughed, I would loathe the uniqueness in me. Your notion was wrong because I am in love with myself, you see. I love my voluptuous lips, my seductive gargantuan brown eyes. I even love the thickness given to my skinny thighs. Till this day, you continue to mock and taunt. But everything I got, you really want. You try to emulate me and do what I do. You look funny because it doesn't even look right on you. You are being injected all over to get what I've got. Girlfriend, either you're born with it or you're not. What was out years ago is now in, no doubt. Everything on you that was in is now way out. Take off my lips, my hips, my hair, and just give it a rest. I'm not trying to be facetious, but he who laughs last, laughs best. Ha ha. That's that piece. Thank you. You guys are so cute. So that's one of my favorite pieces that I like to perform, and I also read it for my kids. They love to hear it. So that's just to encourage you all to be happy in your skin, be happy with who you are, the way you were born. People are made fun of for being born a certain way. be proud of who you are. Because like I said, one day it's gonna be sought after, so who cares? So with that being said, I went on to, like I said, to perfect my poetry, and I just began writing. I got that A+ on Invictus doing my analysis, and that really helped. I mustered up the courage to begin doing poetry events, speaking engagements, and things like that. I had a speaking engagement last month for Black History Month and women in sports. And so my kids were there, my husband was there. I told the last class, he thinks he's funny and he's not. He tries to see if I'm nervous before speaking at any event, so he likes to crack jokes and things like that. So before that, I took speaking classes. Nothing really helped. The speaking classes didn't help. Picturing people in the audience in their underwear did not help at all. So my husband brings up this comment. He goes, "Are you nervous?" And I'm like, "No." He goes, "Yes, you are," because I see sweat dripping down your armpits. I'm like, "No, you're not. You're not funny." And so my 7-year-old is sitting in between us the entire time. And he's listening, but he's focused, like looking ahead. So I thought he wasn't really listening. So my husband says, "Well, just picture the audience in their underwear." Doesn't work. Told him no. And moments pass, and it's my turn to go up on stage and present. And my 7-year-old, he's looking straight ahead. He's not even looking at me, but he goes, "Mommy." And I'm like, what? He goes, "Please don't picture me in my underwear. Imagine me in my underwear." And I was like, "Okay, I won't picture you in your underwear." So I thought that was like cute and funny. So going on stage, it kind of helped me because I did have a little bit of nerves. So whatever nerves that I had, what my 7-year-old said just squashed that. So I read this poem, and I hope you like it. It was for women in sports, Black women in sports. And I read it last week at an event, a Black Women Excellence poem. So it was about them paving the way. And it's titled Her Way. And I would like to read that to you guys. Althea, Wilma, Aura, Surya, Emma, Cynthia, Laura, Layla, Cheryl, Simone, Flojo, Alice, Tessa, Shelly-Ann, Merlene, Erlene, Leslie, Naomi, Jackie, Debbie, Rose, Lynette, Enid, Dominique, and last but not least, my beloved sister Ruthie. I'll tell you about her after I read this. These are just some of the names of great female legends, international superheroes, accomplished overcomers, and the original GOATs. Yes, the greatest of all times, who paved the way for today's emerging trailblazers next in line. They paved the way for us each in a different way, making history her way. I'll say it again, making his story her way. Representing a wide variety of sports and making an impact in tennis, golf, boxing, track and field, as well as basketball and figure skating. How great of an impact, there's no debating. They pioneered to shatter the barriers and stereotypes that have slowed but continue to corrode. They definitely made it easier for us to traverse down this difficult road. There's still necessary change needed, but the legends have lightened the heavy load. We could not have made it this far or even have certain rights without God and their tremendous sacrifice. Today we thank them for their journey of courage that was far from easy. Although successful, this does not diminish the severe racial, gender inequality, social and economic challenges they face regularly. It's unfortunate that before they shattered expectations, earned awards, and received accolades, they were met with several mental and physical barricades. Oftentimes, they were the target of vicious attacks and hate crimes, but they continued to persevere, even during the toughest of times. Although qualified, some said they were not allowed to compete with the other crowd. Accomplished but still having to prove their worth, but they stuck with it and put in the extra hard work. They were expected to fall in line, sit back, and be undefined. Instead, they rose to the top becoming the greatest of all times. Not wavering, they continued to fight and stand proud. At times, they quietly endured harsh racist treatment and gender bias, but their greatness was loud. So loud, it shattered the walls of inequality, using this very opportunity to fight for equality. Coming face to face with oppression, racism, sexism, injustice, and hostility ingrained in our societies, assuring the world there was more to their lives than these controversies based on fallacious ideologies. Controversies that threatened to derail their success and greatness, but their success and greatness could not be contained, because although outwardly it seemed hopeless and dreadful, internally they believed one day the world would know their names. Proving that double discrimination was no match for these triple threats, the audacious acts of the African American female athletes caused them to win medals and dominate the sports world without regrets. Although they were rejected, often received disapproving looks, even left out of history books, they went on to nearly destroy the walls of inequality, leaving a nation shook. Now many take a page from their playbook. Today, many little girls and others around the world are confident they too can change the world. The ball is now in our court to keep their accomplishments in the forefront and continue their legacy. Most importantly, completing the journey they started for us voluntarily, quintessentially. We are obligated to thank them in a very special way for paving the way. So today we say thank you in a major way. Because of their strength, their dedication, and sacrifice, many, I pray, can hold their heads up high and say, I did it her way. That's that piece. So, thank you. You guys are awesome. Thank you. So that poem was written for, like I said, Black History women athletes in excellence last month. So I read it then, and I think it's appropriate for this month because it is Women's Month. So that's why I read it today. But like I talked about, encouraging yourself and inspiring yourself. There's things that we all go through. Everybody has a challenge that they face. I would encourage you to write things down before acting on something. Like, write it down and read it. And you'll be surprised at how that will change the way you feel or stop you from doing something that you probably shouldn't be doing. So I know that the poet before me just read a poem about mental health, and that it is very important. And she inspired me to read a poem, to share with you guys a poem that I wrote about that very thing. We don't know what anybody's going through. We really don't. And sometimes people, we may think people are acting a certain way and they're not. It's just that they're not okay. And we need to check in and make sure they are okay. And there's nothing wrong with that. If there's nothing wrong with not being okay, it's okay not to be okay. Just make sure that you're getting the help that you need. So thank you for, I don't know who the poet was. Oh, heard it. Thank you for bringing that to light, because I was like, I should probably talk about that. So I wrote this poem, and I don't know if they shared that with you. I also am a mental health professional. I have a bachelor's in psychology, and I worked doing counseling at the health department for some time. But that got very, very heavy on me. But I still do it from time to time. So I wrote this poem, and it's called The Worst Pain. She's a prisoner, but you can't see the bars that have her in bondage, or the cage she can't leave because they're all hidden. The worst pain is hidden pain, because instead of letting go, she holds on. And the more she holds on, the deeper the pain becomes. She should just let go and scream to whoever will listen. But she doesn't want anyone to see her pain, because like many, she is a pretender. When you look at someone less fortunate living on the streets, you can almost see their hurt. And if you try hard enough, you can feel their pain. But it's not that simple with this woman. She's all prettied up, wearing only the best of everything, from the luxurious extensions in her hair down to the Valentino pumps on her feet. She dresses up her pain before she presents it to the world. By doing this, no one knows her pain. She's amazingly beautiful, but she has some serious issues. Her smiles only hide the fact that she's dying on the inside. Many don't know that this pretty lady doesn't even think she's pretty. There are nasty scars behind her beauty. Just last night, she attempted suicide for the 4th time in a week. She cried, then wanted to die. She cried some more until she fell asleep, but only to wake up miserable once again. This gorgeous lady has been institutionalized, trapped inside her mental institution. She is the director, therapist, and client. As a director and patient, she wears both suit jackets well. Although she hears the words, "Hey, pretty lady," almost every day, she doesn't believe them. They are all lies to her because she doesn't see it. She is blinded by her ferocious pain and low self-esteem. You can tell her she's beautiful over and over again, but no matter how many times she hears it, she's got to believe it. That's it. That is the worst part. So with that, I just want to, okay, so that I just want to encourage you guys, if you're going through anything, take out a pen and paper and write, because writing literally saved my life. I just recently suffered a tragic loss in 2019, and after that loss, I stopped writing, and then I picked up the pen again and picked back up the pen and started writing again, and it's healing me. My sister Ruthie is the one I was going to tell you about. She was killed tragically in an accident. It was something that we would have never imagined. So that stopped me from writing, and then I started back writing. So I'm healing, and talking to you is helping me to heal. So talk to someone if you're ever feeling a certain way. Thank you guys so much. Does anybody have questions? Does anybody have questions or anything they want to say?
I have a question here.
Okay, sure.
I noticed that some of your poetry rhymes and some of it does not. Is there a way that you kind of decide whether you're going to have a poem rhyme or not rhyme?
No, you know what? And as a beginner writer, I thought every poem had to rhyme. And someone told me, I think it was Gwendolyn Brooks, that said it doesn't have to rhyme. So there's no rhyme or reason. It just, if I start out rhyming, I want to finish it with rhyming. And if I start out not writing, this is how I finish it. And most of the time when I write poems that rhyme, I've spent more time on it because I'm like looking at words. Oh, what goes with this? What goes with that? So yeah. So there's no rhyme or reason for it though. But yeah, that's it. Thank you. Good question. Any other questions, comments? Oh, you got a question?
Does your teacher ever get to see the poetry you publish?
I hope so. I tried to find him. I don't know if he's even still around. Yeah, I tried calling him and everything, and I don't know. I hope he did. Yeah, because he really affected my life. I hope he knows. Thank you. Yeah. Any more questions? I think I'm out of time. But thank you guys. You guys have been great. Thank you so much for having me. Thank you to Mrs. Udishi and Natuli for telling me about this event. You guys have a wonderful day.